Metta vihariyo bhikkhu pasanno buddha sasane adhigacche padang santang sankarupa samansukam. Friends, I want to continue this Metta Dhamma talks. The meaning of the stanza that I recited is Metta vihari yo bhikkhu pasanno buddha sasane adhigacche padang santang sankarupa samansukam. A bhikkhu who lives with metta and pleased with this dispensation of the Buddha attains blissful state, peaceful state by overcoming sankhara. Sankhara upasama, sukha. He experiences, enjoys, attains the happiness of appeasing sankharas. One may wonder how when one practices metta, loving friendliness, that one can overcome sankharas or transcend sankharas. Sankhara means many things. That which keeps us bound to samsara is called sankhara. Samsara is a repetition of birth and death. Sankhara is the backpack for that journey. So we travel, use that backpack. Heavier, the bigger the backpack, the longer the journey. So the longer we go, we need the big backpack. That big backpack is our sankharas. More sankharas we have, longer we can go. So as we go, we must use up these sankharas, use up our backpack. And in fact that is literally true. It is very much like backpack. Backpack is a heavy thing, it is not very easy. If you go longer, the backpack has to be very big to have sufficient provision for the whole journey. And the longer you go, it becomes heavier. At the beginning, something, when you start, at the beginning, anything becomes light, but as you go on, carrying on your shoulders, it becomes very heavy. So I use this term backpack for this reason. You don't find it in any text or commentary, but I think it's very meaningful simile. Anyway, sankhara is that provision that we use for this samsara, traveling samsara journey. But if somebody practices loving friendliness, that individual would be able to eat up this sankhara, this backpack, and reduce it and make it light. That is the meaning of this stanza. And this is the reason why the Buddha said all wholesome activities, wholesome thoughts, words, deeds, begins with metta. Like, not loud enough? Or people at the back cannot hear? Little more. When we bring it closer, I think now it's all right. Can you hear me now? Can? Okay. All right. So, now let me tell you a very traditional story, which is very popular among Buddhist tradition. The story of how Siddhartha Gautama became Buddha as Gautama Buddha. Many eons ago, he met, that time his name was Sumedha. He heard the reputation of a Buddha called Dipankara Buddha. And Dipankara Buddha drove thousands of people for his sermons. And he was so popular. And then Sumedha wanted to go and see him. And when he saw him, at the very first meeting with him, and listening to his first Dhamma talk, he was ready to attain the full enlightenment, arahanthood. But he heard the Dipankara Buddha's sermon. In that sermon, Dipankara Buddha said, now, if you practice perfections, 10 perfections, in a mediocre level, you can become an arahant. If you practice these 10 perfections in a superlative degree, or comparative degree, higher level, you can become a Pacceka Buddha. Pacceka Buddha is, some people translate Pacceka Buddha as partially enlightened. But I don't like that term, partially enlightened. But they are fully enlightened, with one little shortcoming. That is that they are unable to teach. They are unable to teach because in samsara they have not trained themselves to teach. Like all of you are listening to Dhamma talks. Can you all give Dhamma talks? No? I don't think all of you can give Dhamma talks. Maybe very few. So you keep becoming shy and shy and shy. You never give Dhamma talk. And you never teach. But you have tremendous knowledge. All the things you need is in your mind. But unfortunately you cannot teach. Why? You have not trained yourself to teach. And that goes on as a habit in samsara. Not only in one life, every life it is like that. Somehow if you break through this habit, this bashfulness, and come forward, be up front and give talks, little by little you become a good teacher. If you never do that, you cannot do it. So this is the problem with the Pacceka Buddhas. They attain full enlightenment. Since they have not trained themselves to give talks, they cannot deliver Dhamma. One Dhamma sermon, they cannot deliver. That is the only, blind spot, so to say, Pacceka Buddha has. Otherwise, he is fully enlightened. So this Buddha said, if one practices these 10 perfections, in the medium level, you can become Pacceka Buddha. But if you practice it in the superlative degree, the highest level, you can attain full Buddhahood, become perfectly enlightened Buddha, who can teach, preach, advise, and his knowledge is super, the best. Then Sumedha, when he was an ascetic, Sumedha heard this sermon, and also he said, Arahanta's service to the world is limited. Pacceka Buddha's service is still limited. Samma Sambuddha's service to the world is unlimited. Say today, 2000, almost 600 years, after his passing away, still his service is going on. Because he was able to teach, advise, give instructions, and so forth. There have been many thousands of Pacceka Buddhas, nobody knows anything about them. They attain enlightenment. And Arahants, of course, they have given some sermons, but not as many as the Buddha. So, this Sumedha listened to this Dhamma talk, and he thought, I want to serve the largest amount of people, largest amount of living beings. Now, this moment I can attain enlightenment, become an Arahant. That's not a problem. I have to spend only very few minutes in meditation, I can attain it. So he approached this Dipankara Buddha and said, Venerable Sir, I want to become a fully enlightened Buddha. Dipankara Buddha said, Sumedha, it is not very easy. You need enormous 2 out of 10 perfections. I will mention the 10 perfections. Out of the 10 perfections, 2 are very difficult to practice. All of them are difficult, but most difficult are 2. And you got to practice them, perfect, in order to attain full enlightenment. What are the most two difficult? Metta and Upekka. I give you the reason later on why it is difficult. I gave you some reasons yesterday. There are more reasons that make them difficult. Anyway, he said Metta and Upekka, loving friendliness and equanimity are very difficult to practice. Then Sumedha said, Sir, that is why I won't do it. I want to practice Metta and Upekka to the highest degree, because I want to serve as many as beings are in the universe, just like you do. So Dipankara Buddha gave him his blessings and said, okay. He said, then in so many years later, you will become a Buddha by the name of Gautama. Since then, it is said, this now he is Bodhisattva. Now Bodhisattvas also are 3. One is preparing to become fully enlightened Buddha, is one Bodhisattva, that is called Samma Sambodhisattva, and the other one who is preparing to become a Pacceka Buddha, silent Buddha, that is another Bodhisattva, and the third is Arahanta Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva who becomes attains enlightenment by becoming an Arahant, just like anybody else. But don't belittle it and don't laugh at it, scoff it, but it is a very, very important attainment, Arahanthood. But therefore, however, there are 3 types of Bodhisattvas. These three. So he wanted to be a Samma Sambuddha, and he became Samma Sambodhisattva. And eons and eons and eons he practiced these 10 perfections. You have to have those 2 perfections in each perfection to practice them. What are the two perfections you need? Metta and Upekkha. 10 perfections are, I think you all gave Dhamma sermons on 10 perfections. I'm not going to give sermons on 10 perfections, but I want to show where Metta and Upekkha involved in these 10 perfections. 10 perfections. The first is generosity, we call dana. Second is discipline, morality or sila. Third is renunciation, nekkhamma. Fourth is wisdom, panya. Fifth is perseverance or effort, called virya. Sixth is patience, khanti. Seventh is truthfulness, satya. Eighth is determination, adhitthana. Then the ninth is metta, loving friendliness. 10th is upekkha, equanimity. Now, suppose you want to practice the first one, perfections of generosity. Generosity has one of our members, I gave these topics to our monastics to give Dhamma talks, and they gave good Dhamma talks. And one gave a talk on dana, very elaborate, detailed talk on dana. It takes many hours to give a complete talk on dana. I'm not going to do that. But I want to emphasize, I want to bring few factors where loving kindness is involved. There are 3 factors involved in dana. That is chitta, khetta, vattu. Chitta means the state of mind. Khetta means the things, material things or whatever things you use to share, give. Vattu is the recipient. Now these 3 must be accompanied with loving friendliness and equanimity. As I said, all the 10 perfections must be accompanied with these 2 factors. Now, in dana, when we say chitta, means state of mind, and that also has 3 levels. Before you give something, your state of mind has to be filled with loving, friendly thought. It has to be filled with equanimity. Of course, it also has to be filled with compassion. It has to be filled with appreciative joy. That means before you give anything, whether material, there are all kind of gifts. Giving material things, giving your energy, giving your skill, and teaching Dhamma, which is considered to be the highest gift. Highest gift. And Buddha said in teaching Dhamma, Sabbang dadocha sohoti yo vedeti upassavang amatang dadocha sohoti yo dhamma manusasati. Sabbang dadocha sohoti, one who gives monastery, temple, gives everything, because monastery, temple is a spiritual center where people can gather, learn Dhamma, learn meditation, learn to be very friendly, associate with good people. Only good people are drawn to temples, not gamblers. I don't say they are bad, but they are not going to the temples to do that. Not butchers, not drunkards, and so forth. They may go to, but not going to drink. Not going to do wrong things. All those who go to temples are those who have a good intention to do something good. Presumably, sometimes the people may have that intention also, that we don't know. But primarily that is the purpose. So, the place where good people are drawn is a temple. And therefore when you give a temple, you give everything. You give that with the thought of loving kindness, thought of friendliness, thought of compassion, thought of appreciative joy, thought of equanimity. Therefore you give everything. But Buddha said, Amatang dadocha sohoti yo dhamma manusasati. If somebody teaches Dhamma, he gives ambrosia. Amata has two meanings. One is deathlessness, second is ambrosia, considered to be the food of gods, amata. Devana mamruti brahma, divine beings' food is amrita. Amrita means ambrosia. Anyway, that is, before we give something, energy, time, material things, monastery, giving Dhamma talk, Dhamma sermon, we never expect anything in return. When we give a Dhamma talk, teach the Dhamma, explain the Dhamma, never expect even a thank from people, let alone any material gift, this and that. So, before giving, we have to have that thought. Why I give these things? Because I want people to enjoy it. That is living thought. Why I give this? Because I want to eliminate people's suffering. Compassion is there. Why I want to give this? Because I want to see them enjoying it. So that is appreciative joy. Why I want to give this? Because I want to maintain my balance of mind. That is equanimity. So before we give anything, we have to have these 4 Brahma Viharas in our mind. Out of 10 perfections, 2 of them are there. 2 Brahma Viharas are there in 10 perfections. When we are giving things, before we give these things, we have to have this thought. Suppose we start giving, we plan to give something 10 years ahead, and all these 10 years we think of these noble thoughts. If we plan to give certain things in a week, in 2 days, we should have these thoughts in our mind all the time, not to expect any reward from people, from the recipients. So that's a wonderful, generous, loving, compassionate, appreciative, equanimous thoughts we have in our mind. When we are giving things, giving our energy, giving our time, giving Dhamma sermons, giving material things, while giving, at that time also we must have these 4 Brahma Viharas in our mind. 2 of them are Metta and equanimity. We have to give them with Metta, with compassion, with loving kindness. Why? Suppose we give something material, food, for instance. We give food. We must give the food with Metta, thinking that may these recipients, men, women, children, monks, nuns, beggars, sick people, whoever recipients, may these recipients be happy, be free from pain of hunger. May they be able to live long. May they gain strength, physical strength. May they gain mental ability. You know, food, good nourishment is necessary for good mental functioning. Protein and vitamin and minerals and so forth are important for the good health. So we have to let them live a good, healthy life when we give something. While they are enjoying your meals, you have to think that way. Let them have good meal. Let them eat this. Let them have a good state of health, physically as well as mentally. You have to have compassion at the same time. Don't overfeed them when you are feeding, and don't overfeed out of compassion, because some people can become very gluttonous and they can fall sick. And don't give wrong food, junk food, because they can be sick. You have to have compassion for their good health, for their life. So when you give something, give with this thought. And also while they are enjoying what you are giving, I am thinking of food. For example, I mean, you can give thousands of things. You can give a dress, you can give a shirt or robe or cap or shoe or whatever you give. When you are giving, you like to see the person using it. When you give it, you like to see the person enjoying what you are giving. That is appreciative joy. You appreciate. The person would say, "This is wonderful. I like this very much." Not out of greed, but that person appreciates what you give. And you appreciate that person's appreciations. Then you also should have equanimity at the time you are giving. That is most difficult, very sublime state, very high state. Your equanimity should be not to become very proud that you have given something and they are enjoying, others don't give anything, and then you are very superior to others. Or you are giving something and they are recipients, they seem to have certain obligation to you because you give. You know, always recipients have a certain degree of obligation to the giver. Giver enjoys the gift more than the recipient. But you should never think that, oh, I give something and therefore I am better than that person. You have to have an equanimous state of mind. Suppose somebody enjoys what you give and somebody does not enjoy at all. The person takes it and puts it aside and never uses it again at all. And still you should never become disappointed. Have equanimous state of mind. Then, after giving, whenever you think about it, you become very happy. You become very, you have Metta for the recipient. You have friendliness. And you have compassion. You think about with compassion about the recipient, and you think with appreciative joy. You enjoy when you think about the pleasure, joy the other person had when you gave, and you have equanimous state even after giving. So these 4 Brahma Viharas should be included, not should be included, automatically, naturally it comes into your mind before you share something, while you are sharing something, after you have shared something. Now this is what is called chitta, the mind. Then I mentioned three factors: chitta, vattu, you give, or the dhamma you give, energy you give, skill you give, whatever you give, that is the thing you give. That also has to be earned with Brahma Vihara. That means you have earned something with loving friendliness to give, to share with somebody. You have not the thing, if you have stolen from somebody, if you have got it from a very cruel means, snatched it from somebody, and suppose you got something in a very dishonest way, that is not earned in with the friendliness, with loving friendliness. What you have given, what you give also has to be earned with loving friendliness, with compassion, with appreciative joy, and with equanimity. And also the recipients. The third is called, the third fact is recipient. Vattu, chitta, ketta. Ketta means the field where you sow the seeds. Here, the recipients are the field where you sow this seed of gift. And you have to have a loving kindness towards the recipient. You have to have a compassion for the recipient. You have to have appreciative joy for the recipient. You have to have equanimous state of mind towards the recipient. If you give something with anger, disappointment, I give you an example. Sometimes people wonder, how can we give something with disappointment or anger? Suppose these are all hypothetical examples, don't take them literally. But this is, although hypothetical, it's also possible. Suppose you have a child, you dearly love the child, and you have saved something, put something aside for the child. Open a bank account or something you have set aside, wrote a will or something. And all of a sudden child dies. You are disappointed, depressed, full of sorrow, grief-stricken, very angry. Why my child died? I saved all these things for my child, and so forth and so on. You keep thinking, and now look at the things that you have saved for the child. Then you think, what is the use of these things? I throw it away, give to somebody. I don't want to keep this at all, not even to think about it. Give away, give away. You give it away in anger, not out of love, not out of respect, not out of generosity, not compassion, nothing. But with anger, because you don't even want to think of what you have said, or think of the child. That every time you think about it, you feel upset, disappointed, and angry. Or, on the other hand, you have something given to you by somebody, and you get upset with that person, get angry for one reason or another. So this thing you have, and you don't want to keep it, because every time you look at it, you remember the person who gave it to you. You hate the person so much, you don't want to keep this, you give it away. That you do in anger. This is how we give things away in anger. And therefore, when we give away things, don't give things away with anger. Giving service, giving energy, giving skill, whatever we give away, don't give away with anger. Give it with loving friendliness, metta. So, this is the first perfection. When you look at each perfection has to be practiced with these 4 Brahmaviharas in mind. Second perfection, sila, morality, discipline, certain principles in life. You practice, Buddha said to bhikkhus many times, bhikkhus practice, live a life of loving friendliness towards people who support you. Practice your sila, practice your discipline, your morality, out of loving friendliness towards people who support you, with compassion for them, with appreciative joy for what they are, how they are enjoying your life, and with equanimity you practice this. And this goes with the perfection of morality, perfection of discipline, and all other perfections that I mentioned, all of them have to be practiced this way. So when Sumedha ascetic heard this sermon, he thought, it is very difficult, but I have enough loving kindness. I want to develop loving kindness, appreciative joy, compassion, equanimity. I want to cultivate. So from that time onward, until he attained the state of enlightenment, amount of lives he was born and the amount of times he practiced this are incalculable. They are called asankheya, cannot be counted. Incalculable length of time in samsara he practiced them. And as I said the other day, he practiced them and practiced and practiced and practiced until he reached perfection of each of them. And then he attained enlightenment. So attaining enlightenment of that type is not very simple, not very easy. However, if you have enough loving kindness, enough patience, equanimity, you can cultivate it. So then, after attaining enlightenment, he said, Buddhoso bhagava bodha dhammam deseti. That having attained this state of enlightenment, he taught the Dhamma to enlighten others out of loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy and equanimity. Muttoso bhagava vimuttaya dhammang deseti. Having liberated himself from all psychic irritants, he went on teaching people out of loving kindness, compassion, for them to be liberated from all psychic irritants. Dantoso bhagava dhamataya dhammang deseti. Having tamed, disciplined himself, he taught others out of loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy and equanimity, for their taming their mind. Then Santo so bhagava samata dhammang deseti. Having been peaceful and calm, he taught the Dhamma to other people to make them peaceful and calm and happy. Out of compassion, loving kindness, appreciative joy and so forth. Parinibbuto so bhagava parinibbanaya dhammang deseti. That is very important thing. Parinibbuto so bhagava. Parinibbuta means some people without thinking very much about Pali or not knowing Pali well, translate Parinibbuta means having passed away. Parinibbana means passing away. Parinibbut. If you say Parinibbuta is having passed away, he taught the Dhamma, doesn't make any sense. When you are passed away, how can you teach the Dhamma? Parinibbuta here means having reached the ultimate state of peace. Nibbutta has a very beautiful meaning. When Siddhartha Gautama was leaving his palace, one of the palace queens that also happened to be one of the consorts of Siddhartha, she saw Siddhartha returning home from his trip to the city on a horse car. He was coming back. She saw him coming. So normally Siddhartha was 29 years old. He was beautiful, very handsome, very attractive, young, healthy, beautiful person. So she immediately became very passionate towards him, seeing him in the evening. So she said, Nibbuto nuna sopita, nibbuta nuna sanari, nibbuta nuna samata, yassayang idisapati. There Nibbutta means satisfied, become accomplished something and completely satisfied without anything left out, complete satisfaction. So she said, if a father has a son like this, he is fully, completely satisfied. If a mother has a son like this, she will be completely satisfied. If a woman has him as her husband, she will be perfectly satisfied. There Nibbutta means perfect satisfaction, not death, as sometimes people say. Nibbutta doesn't mean death all the time. There Nibbutta means perfect satisfaction. So Siddhartha heard this. He had a necklace or ring in him, so he sent it through the charioteer. He sent this to her, and she thought, he is in love with me. She was fully satisfied. Now she is utmostly happy. But what Siddhartha understood was, now you taught me very beautiful lesson. You are talking about perfect satisfaction. I am going to give that perfect satisfaction, not only to you, but I am going to give that perfect satisfaction to the entire world, to the whole humanity. He thought this is the moment of expressing his loving kindness. Loving kindness towards the whole world. And then, since she initiated, sparked this thought in his mind at that moment, he wanted to show his gratitude. To express his thanks, he sent this thing to her and went home, and that night he left home. And after many years he attained enlightenment. Anyway, so the word Parinibbitoso Bhagava Parinibbana Dhammang Deseti means having attained full, perfect, complete satisfaction of peace, comfort, liberation of his mind from all psychic irritants. He wanted the whole world to have perfect peace, perfect satisfaction, perfect liberation from all psychic irritants. So, therefore he said, Metta Vihari Yo Bhikkhu, this is the stance I used at the beginning, Pasanno Buddha Sasane Adhigacche Padang Santang Sankharupa Samansukam. A bhikkhu who practices this metta, loving friendliness all the time, he shares friendliness with whole world. And that, how can that help for one to go over or transcend sankhara, bring this backpack to an end, exhaust? By practicing loving kindness, how can one liberate himself? Because as I said, practicing loving kindness is one of the Brahma Viharas and one of the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, and it is a tranquility meditation subject, and also can use as vipassana meditation, but that alone can become the driving force of attaining full enlightenment, liberation. Why? How? One who keeps this thought in mind all the time and develop it to the fullest, greatest extent and attain highest level of jhana, concentration, and then the thought itself is so altruistic, so wonderful, illimitable, immeasurable, powerful. So cultivating this thought again and again and again, mind becomes fully saturated with this thought. And then, after gaining concentration, he thinks, well, imang ceto vimutti abhisankatang abhisancetaitam. This liberation of my mind through the practice of loving friendliness is created by myself. It is created by myself in my own mind. And therefore, it is impermanent. It is impermanent not in the sense that today I practice metta and tomorrow I don't have. Not in that sense. In other ordinary love, today you have, tomorrow you may not have it. Due to certain factors, you lose it. You get angry, get upset, separate, this and that. But this is not like that. It is impermanent, not in that sense. It is impermanent because it is created by mind. No matter how long we have it, we may have in our entire life, still, since it is created by our mind, in our mind, it is impermanent, because mind is impermanent. The mental factors are impermanent. And therefore, no matter how lofty the thought is, it is impermanent. Nirodha Dhammam, Sabbantang, Abhisankatang, Abhisanchetetang, Tada Nityang Nirodha Dhammam. That which is created by mind, generated in mind, is impermanent, Nirodha Dhammam, of the nature of disappearance. It is subject to disappear. It is subject to disappear when we attain higher level of insight. But it comes back after the full attainment of enlightenment. It comes back in a different form, different power, different strength, without any scruple of stain in it. It comes, second time it comes as a result of full enlightenment, not created by mind. First time it comes as a creation in our mind. Second time it comes naturally because of the pure, clear state of mind. And therefore, when he sees this nature, he liberates himself from psychic irritants. I mean, not only this, there are various other things, but this is the initial stage. So, in practice, one has to guard against loving kindness. When one practices loving kindness, one must practice it with mindfulness. When somebody tries to cultivate loving kindness, all of a sudden one may direct the loving kindness towards the one who loves passionately. If you start loving kindness directing towards somebody, a person whom you passionately, romantically love, then you are in danger. You cannot go beyond that. You stop there. At that time, if that image, if that person comes to your mind, you say to yourself, or you say to that memory, please, darling, sweetheart, my honey, please, I will get you to that. I'll get back to you later. You know I love you. you know I love you. This time I am going to practice something that you also like to practice. I am practicing something that you and I both want to practice together, not only for the benefit of both of us, but for the benefit of all living beings. Our love is limited between you and me, but let us cultivate the greater love for the whole world. You tell that thought, when that thought, that image comes to your mind, you tell that thought and ask that thought, that image, that person in your mind. Not the person physically comes to you. The thought arises in your mind. Memory arises in your mind. Experiences arise in your mind. You tell them, please, hold on, back up, wait, let me go through this. This is exquisite. This is very peaceful. I share that with you. You also will like to cultivate that. And therefore, when we are both ready, we both cultivate that altruistic love for the whole world, between you and me and between everybody else in the world. So, if you are not mindful, you get carried away with that thought of sharing, directing your love toward your loving person. You don't have to neglect that person. You don't have to say, I hate that person and so forth. But with a loving thought, develop another thought, to talk to that thought in this way. You certainly can put that thought aside with another loving thought in your mind, so that doesn't hurt that person or you. You are developing it in a very tactful, very skillful way to maintain that love rather than weakening. Second, practicing compassion. When you try to practice compassion, there is an enemy. That enemy of compassion is sadness. If you are not mindful, when you try to practice, you become very sad. You cry. When a pathetic situation arises, suffering being is there, instead of cultivating compassion with mindfulness, you begin to cry. So you cannot help the person. So you got to bring compassion, what you call insight, mindfulness, and hold back, stop, take a deep breath and say to yourself, wait a minute, what am I doing? Am I cultivating compassion, or am I doing something with compassion, or am I just becoming a child, foolish, crying, becoming sad? So there again we need mindfulness. The third, when you try to cultivate appreciative joy, you overwhelm with this joy and become very excited without your knowledge. And it is said that you become even giddy with your excitement. Therefore, you got to guard your mind against that using mindfulness. Then finally, when you try to practice equanimity, guard it against indifference, neutrality. Indifference is a very cold-hearted, very negative state of mind, not true equanimity. True equanimity is the very mature emotion, very mature, grown-up, adult, powerful, supreme kind of just emotion. Just emotion, meaning you are in a very sort of higher position in that state of mind. You are not biased, not falling this way or that way. For that, you got to bring mindfulness to cultivate that. Now, this is how we have to cultivate these four states. And you can see how four Brahmaviharas permeate all our wholesome activities. You can never do anything wholesome without these four Brahmaviharas. Can think of anything you do, anything wholesome. For anything wholesome, these four Brahmaviharas must be the basis, foundation. Without them, no wholesome deeds can be done in the real, perfect sense of wholesomeness. I think you may have questions. Tonight, I decided different method. Those who like to write questions, those who don't like to ask questions, in person, write them and put in the box. Others who like to have a discussion. Tonight we have a discussion, real discussion. I have been talking this whole, tomorrow will be 10th day of my talking. And you are just listening. I want to listen tonight. And you talk. Or I participate. And so let us have a discussion. Ask questions in person. If the answer is not satisfactory, ask counter question. So make it a lovely discussion. I think that also gives you a good chance to talk. I think you are ready for that. Okay? So we end here and then start our meditation. Who is going to teach yoga today? Okay. Bhante Sanda will teach yoga.